as I was saying, wet tatami is actually a lot easier to cut than dry tatami. But with that in mind, that's why the swords were designed like they were. I mean, that's why tatami mats were used the way they were. Because the tatami mat, when you cut it, it's basically the same thing as cutting human flesh. Your human flesh is wet and moist and fibrous, so naturally the tatami mats uh, were a good choice. And then adding bamboo would simulate a bone, and then adding leather on top of that would simulate skin. But then again, there also is the thing about the sword. It's like, what else can you use to test the sword? They thought about this, and it's like, forged in fire actually does basically what people in the ancient world used to do to test swords. Test them on the carcasses of animals. Now, the reason that we use pig carcasses to test the swords are because a pig's flesh, their bone structure, like density and such, and even their skin, it's very similar to humans in a sense. Uh, from pigs, the insulin that you inject if you're diabetic, the insulin you inject, it comes from pigs. Uh, Heart valves for uh, heart surgery come from pigs. So, as we figured it out that pigs biologically are constructed very similar to us, we decided that, okay, if our swords can cut through a pig carcass, then they can no doubt cut through a human. And with that in mind, the pigs they use on Forge and Fire have died from diseases, old age, or illness. Their meat is not edible, but they can still be used to test swords. And with that in mind, it's like, okay, so we can bring back the body system. So we're going to bring back the body system for this. If our sword can cut through one pig carcass, then it's a one-body sword. If it can cut through two, it's a two-part. It's a two-sword, and so on and so forth. Now, uh, with that in mind, uh, the swords used by now with that in mind, you have to remember fix that. With that in mind, uh, I know that people think that the whole cutting pig carcasses is gruesome thing. Cold Steel does it a lot. Forged in Fire definitely does it. You have to remember they're trying to be as historically accurate as possible, and since no one's going to find themselves in a position nowadays that they are going to be, oh, this guy, he bumped my scabbard, I gotta draw my sword and fight him. Or, ninjas are attacking me in a dark alleyway. It's like, oh, I gotta draw my sword, I gotta kill these guys. It's like, I gotta remember this sword is like a 5-man sword. No, you're not going to find yourself in a situation nowadays where you're going to use a sword to defend your life, unless you carry a sword like I do. But in any case, with that in mind, why the hell does this camera keep going up? It's like, with that in mind, the sword, the katana, it was invented for one thing, to kill and cut. But the testing methods used to test the sword evolved from humans to tatami to pig carcasses. And with that in mind, uh, it is a very fairly accurate assumption to if your sword can cut through a pig carcass in one swing, it can cut through a human. Now, granted, those pig carcasses are empty. They don't have the vacuum suction that we have inside of our bodies. They don't have the organs to cut, stuff like that. They're just cutting flesh and skin and bone. But in any case, even with those, if your sword is capable of cutting through that shit, if it is capable of cutting a pig carcass in half, then it's a one-body sword, and it's fairly accurate to how swords were tested back in the Sengoku, the Tokugawa, and even up to the Meiji era. But I just thought that oh, and I have deleted that video where I cut the tatami mat. I'll be remaking that. So, just so you know. And I thought you would just like to know a brief history about the katana and how it was tested. If I get enough views on this video, I might make a specifically dedicated video to how the katana was forged, which I know quite a bit about that, considering that I am a massive sword freak. But in any case, until next time, Outlaw Samurai tells all y'all be crazy rednecks and be safe when using your weapons. I'm Al. Peace. Part 2 Sword History.